self-sustaining training. What I want to do is to spend a few moments giving you a little bit of an idea of what I'd like to share with you today. See, I don't know whether you are somebody that buy training, whether you attend training sessions, lessons, lectures, briefings, conferences, but pretty much most of us at some point during our professional lives or personal lives have to share ideas. It's what it's all about. We have to learn from people, we have to teach people. And what I want to do is to share some ways with you today that I'm calling self-sustaining training that I think will make it better, will make it more effective, will make it more useful. And it's something I'm really excited about. It's something I'm really passionate about. And I'm looking to get a bit of a rebellion. I'm getting a bit of a revolution, if you like. So today, whether this is live for you or whether you're watching this on video, I'm going to invite you to join the revolution. That's the plan. Now, before we get started, do you know everybody else here? That's the interactive section, thank you for that. Good, okay, so we'll do a very quick round of introductions. This shouldn't take us too long. What I'm thinking is just once at a time, if you stand up, say who you are, where you're from, a bit about yourself as a person, you married, boyfriend, girlfriend, show us the photos on your device. A bit about yourself as a person, your best holiday, your worst holiday, 3 things about you that's true and 1 that's false. Go. That's all right, Wendy. No, that's all right. So all rabbit in the headlights moment then. What? No, I don't. If you've ever been on any kind of training session, they often start with something like that, don't they? And the idea is Wendy stands up and starts talking about herself, and we should be fascinated in listening, Wendy, because it's an interesting life to share, but no one's listening. No reflection, because all anybody's thinking is, what do I say about myself? How long do I talk for? And it moves ever closer to you, like creeping death. And so what's your name right at the back there in the corner? Tom. Tom, yeah, it's to end with Tom. By now, Tom, no one cares. And I'm not being personal, Tom, because again, there are lots to share, but we're all thinking, why didn't I plan this? It's just an awful, terrible thing. If you've ever, again, been invited in a work situation to do that exercise, find somebody you don't know and tell them something about you that nobody else knows. If nobody knows it, there's a very good reason for that. Keep it to yourself. You see, one of the interesting things is I've been delivering training for about 20 years, and I've never really found anybody, bar 2 or 3 people, that like that activity, stand up and introduce yourself. And it starts the session in quite a stressy way. It's not a good learning way. In fact, it's a bit like, if I think of all the places I've worked all over the UK, Europe, worked in East and West Coast America, different countries in Africa, I've worked in the Far East, and pretty much, this might surprise you, but pretty much all delegates on training courses or conferences can be divided into 3 types. Now, I'm not saying there's only 3 types of people in the world, that would be ridiculous, but I am saying there's only 3 types of people when it comes to a conference. Let me explain what I mean and see if this kind of makes sense to you. So, the first kind of person you find at the conference is what I like to call the enthusiast. You know the enthusiast, they're kind of quite, oh, there we go, there's one, thank you. Quite rare often, but often, you know, enthusiasts, they don't necessarily agree with everything that's being said, but they like to fully engage, they like to challenge the ideas, they like to see how it's going. Now in conference situations, in work situations, you don't find a lot of enthusiasts. The second type is what I like to call the holiday maker. Now, holiday makers are far more common in the workplace. These are people who think, it's a chance to get a little bit of time away from work. There might be a cup of coffee and a biscuit involved. And it's an opportunity to sit next to somebody you find physically attractive. I don't know how you sorted your... Actually, don't forget that thought. The problem, of course, sometimes with holidaymakers is that you're kind of okay while it's okay, but then when you are asked to do something you don't want to do, it's a bit of work, you can't switch off a little bit, or maybe it's a little bit... It's like a fair weather delegate. And then there's a third type of delegate, potentially my favourite actually, what I like to call the prisoner. Now we've all seen a prisoner arrive at a conference session or a training session. This is the person who arrives slightly late, on purpose. And just to let you know that they're not really that interested. There's somebody who sits there with their arms folded. By the way, your arms are folded, it's just because you're comfortable. I know, I can say it's fine. Okay, but you know, and they kind of glare at you with a special kind of malevolence. And it's to let you know that not only are you saying stuff they don't agree with, but they don't approve of you as a person either. Most of us have seen this kind of individual. Now statistically, every organisation in the world, this has been proven now time and time again, corporate, public bodies, large companies, small companies, every team, every department, every section has at least one super prisoner. Now a super prisoner is somebody who adopts this method of learning all the time. highly sceptical, highly negative. They put out a vibe. They've got a face like a slapped backside. You know the type of person. And by the way, if you're sat there right now thinking, yeah, I'll tell you what, Graham, we don't have anybody like that in my team. It's you. Now here's the interesting thing. A lot of trainers that I've worked with over the last 20 years tend to put all their attention and focus on why it's working and not working on those learners, on those audience members. And don't get me wrong, I think that's an important thing. This is a two-way process, subtle hint. But a lot of where trainers, I think, go wrong is they tend to focus too much on that. They tend to blame the audience. You probably heard trainers go, yeah, it's a really great session, the audience was up for it. Or it was a really tough session, there's a bunch of prisoners in there. And I think that's the wrong focus. See, I think training needs to be three key things. And by training, I mean theories, conferences, lessons, briefings, any time you need to share some ideas. I think all training sessions should be absolutely compelling. I think you should want to queue around the block to get involved. And it doesn't matter what the topic is. People make excuses when it's health and safety. It can't be too interesting, can it? Says who? Oh, well, it's HR for basics, for managers. Okay, I don't think that's a good enough excuse. I think we should be finding ways to make training and learning compelling for everybody. Otherwise, why would they give up their valuable time to come along? Secondly, the training must be useful. So it has to absolutely be useful, because otherwise, what are they going to do with it? Trainers have this habit all the time of thinking, I'll show you a useful theory and you'll kind of get it by osmosis. No, you won't. Because you don't care, because it's not your key thing if it's not your topic. And the third thing, all training has got to add some absolute value, I believe, to the business, to the organisation. Somebody has to pay for it. It has to come from somewhere. So these three key things are three key fundamental, for me, tenets of training, learning, briefing, conferences that I've always tried to apply. Until recently, I've pretty much always thought I've got it right. But about a few months ago, 6-7 months ago, I had one of those kind of aha moments that challenged that. I'll tell you about that in a moment, because that forms the basis of self-sustaining training. Because this is what most people do when they start to think about a training session. So let's say I've been asked to come along and teach you coaching. So this is what most people tend to do. You put a coaching program together, what is all the stuff I know about coaching? So you'll come up with a bunch of topics like, oh, I need a coaching model. Grow, that's always good. Those of you who know Grow, see some of you do. Still see the horror in your eyes, the 1,000-yard stare. Or we need some kind of something to do with emotions, because people get emotional when they're being coached. Oh, what else are we going to teach them? Oh, open questions, that's going to be, and so it goes on. And then what you do, once you've got all your topics, you then create a list of slides, and you PowerPoint people to death. You've probably experienced this occasions. People get driven by the PowerPoint, and they actually stand there going, yeah, we're running a bit short of time. I'm just going to show you a bunch of slides. I know you won't have time to read these, but I'll go just quickly to hope that some of it sticks. And the problem is, most of us know this doesn't work. It's pretty clear this doesn't work, but a lot of people still persist in trying to teach a room full of people by showing them lots of slides and making them read slide after slide after slide. And there's an issue with this. It's never really worked, but I think it's absolutely not worked even more in the last 5 years. And this was that epiphany moment I had. And I'll tell you exactly what happened. I was speaking to an event of about 500 people in Birmingham, and there was a really good atmosphere. There was a lot of people interested. But on the back row there was somebody who was constantly using his mobile phone. Now I was slightly thrown by this, because I have to tell you, I'm a very compelling speaker, just in case you haven't noticed. And I'm not used to that happening, but I was a little bit thrown. But anyway, the event ended and several people came up and said some nice things, and one of them was this person with his phone. And I said, I'm going to ask you, what was the deal with the phone? And he said, oh yeah, quite a few of my colleagues couldn't make it. So what we were doing was sending your key messages to our followers. We were taking photos of your slides and sharing them. We were filming little bits of what you were doing and passing on to other people. And I had one of those, oh my goodness moments. The oh my goodness moment being that those devices that most of us have got these days can access the world of information. And it doesn't matter whether we're looking at videos or animations or theories or forums or discussion points or anything. It's all there available. Now, I'm not, by the way, arguing that we ought to be putting everything online, but we should. I'm also not arguing that we should get rid of live speaking, because we should have more live speaking. My argument is that we have to start having more of everything all of the time in learning, And we have to completely, fundamentally, but very simply, redesign the way we do training, coaching and briefing. That's what I want to share with you right now. That's the process that I want to show you that absolutely makes a massive, massive difference. So, the first thing in any point when you're going to plan any sharing of information, you have to ask yourself, why am I going to do this? Now this seems like a fairly simple question. It's a training needs analysis, isn't it, Graham? We got that. And I get that. But unfortunately, a lot of why isn't as clear as it should be. So why are you going to run this session? I have clients all the time who say, well, we've always done it. This is what we've always done. Or I have clients go, well, my boss has told me we need to get more of a coaching culture, so we're going to teach coaching. Or it's just the boss's latest thing. So we actually need to start with, I suggest, a really useful question, which is this. What, as a result of this training, do you want your delegates thinking, saying and doing? Now this is a better version of why do you want to do it? And think, say and do, I've consistently found, gives you a better reason and better planning for the situation, the session that you're planning. Because if I think about the coaching example we had earlier, so you want to do coaching, so why? What do you want your delegates thinking as you're actually talking? Well, let's think about this. You want them to agree that this is working. You want to agree that management, just by telling people, isn't as strong as it might be. You want them to start to think, oh, this could work better. What do you want them to think? What do you want them to say? How are you going to move this from just thinking it to starting to articulate it? And then crucially, how are you going to move them from thinking this and saying it to doing something with it? 24 to 48 hours after most training sessions, 90% plus of what you've learned has been forgotten. Because there's not enough plan from doing it, thinking it, saying it, to actually then take it back into the workplace. We have to start fundamentally redesigning why we wheel everybody into a big room, sit them down and tell them stuff. See, I want you, fundamentally, to consider using this. If you have to do any kind of theory, any discussion, any briefing, any training, any teaching, I want you to consider this as a model. Because I've extensively road tested this and it absolutely works. I want you to start considering what is the return on investment that you're looking to get from this session that you're going to run. People will often say you can't put a return on investment on soft skills. So why are you doing it? I had one of these big lessons many years ago. A client said to me, why are we hiring you for this session? I said, oh, it's really good, it's really useful, great response, great feedback. He said, yeah, I get all of that if I take them to the pub. It's a lot cheaper, I'll get great feedback. I want to know what I'm going to gain from this situation. The second question is what? There are actually two whats. So the first what looks a lot like the coaching list of what. So what is it you're going to show them? The coaching acronym, for example, the open questions, the rapport, all those sorts of areas. That's what you're going to tell them. But then there's a second what, and this is the so what. So what do you want them to do with all of that? Too often I see trainers and I see people briefing a room full of people saying, this is the new process, and hoping that you'll make the link that you've got to do the new process, and not working out that there will be some problems with the new process that should be in the so what side. So the so what side for coaching might look a bit like that. In other words, I'm going to teach you how to do the Grow coaching model. What does the O stand for in the Grow coaching model? Those of you who nodded at me that you've used it before. Options, indeed. Now, one of the problems you have when you teach people coaching is you say, what are your options? And then the guy goes, I've got no idea, you're the manager. You tell me. So I'll tell you then. And now we're not coaching anymore. Now, instead, what we're doing is telling them what to do. So one of the so what questions is, what do you do when they do that? We might think about emotion being something that happens in coaching. So therefore, what do we do if somebody bursts into tears? Now you can see, can't you? Between so what and why, we're getting a really close link. Why are you doing this coaching program? What's your return on investment measures? So what are you going to show them, and what do they do with it? There's a massively tight link between those two items there. And then, and only then, do we get to the third part. And the third part is, so how are we actually going to do this? Now, anybody involved in training gets a bit excited by the how bit, because the how bit is the shiny, sexy bit. Actually, I don't know if I'm allowed to say sexy in a TED talk. I've now just said it twice. There we go. So, the how is the shiny bit that everybody gets really excited about. So what's the new thing? When I do a trade show, People who buy training always come up to me and say, what's new? What can we do? What's new? What's the greatest, newest, brilliant, fabulous psychometric? Do we get famous people speaking? Do we get videos? Is it streamable on demand? But it's the wrong way round. We need to start with why, what, so what, and then we get to how. And like I said to you, I think any of these hows are absolutely possible. So I think we should have live speaking, and I think we should get famous people involved. I think we should use video, we should have animation and theories and models. But I think we need to move away from this idea that too many trainers still have, which is I have all of the secrets in my training manual here. I want you to turn to page 7, but don't read ahead. Even though you can flip open your device and get all the answers and better answers from more qualified people in a split second. We've got these devices, we should use them. Why don't we start sending theories to people before they come onto the course? Why don't we make this all about using those theories? The why, the what, and the how. So the how now starts to become a far clearer shape. So we start to realise we've got a really simple diagram here. And what I can tell you from having road tested this particular theory specifically, I've been teaching how to teach for years, but I've been using this several months now with a variety of different groups. And I've consistently got great results. So with very, very new trainers, I've had people saying it's great. It's a really, really simple process. Start with why. Why are you going to do this? What are you going to tell them and what do they do with it, and make sure those two line up. And then move on to how. How are you going to bring all of that to life? And what I've noticed is that how now, you get far less frivolous nonsense that sometimes happens in training. You get far less unnecessary spending time on these bits because you're making sure that the how properly works with the what and the why. So I've done it with new trainers, I've tried it with experienced trainers who told me they're jaded. And fascinatingly, they've all said, you know what? There's things like the let's go around the room and introduce ourselves we've realised doesn't really serve a purpose anymore. We're getting rid of it. And I've also tried this with very senior board members. I don't know if you've ever been to a board meeting, very accurately titled, but I've worked with people who've said to me, you know, we do this thing, we get everybody together every quarter, 500 members of staff, we do a town hall, we tell them all this stuff. And actually now we've worked through that model, we have no idea why we're doing it. It costs a huge amount of time, an inordinate amount of money, and it seems to achieve very little. It's given us a chance to rethink that. So, as we start to bring all this to an end, that model there, that theory, I'm going to urge you to perhaps consider giving it a go. It absolutely works, and it makes any kind of briefing or training or lesson or teaching a considerably better and more powerful and more effective process. For now, I really hope you've enjoyed the session. More importantly, I hope you've got something useful from the session. I'll urge you to join the Training Rebellion, and I look forward to meeting you in the future and hearing all about your training and learning successes. Thank you.